are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and I'm excited to welcome back to the show Al Reynolds. He's no stranger here. He is our politics and pop culture contributor. He's also a professor at Bowie State University and executive in residence. Welcome back, Al Reynolds.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and to my esteemed colleague, Vincent Jones. It's good to see you again on this Wednesday. But I must say, in all my scholarliness, that these stories are hotter than fish grease, baby. I can't wait to dive in.
They are very hot indeed. And also welcome Vincent Jones, our CEO of Beyond Impact. Vincent, I want to start with you here. Because this is a story that has a lot of our community sort of holding its breath. I'm talking about Nolan Wells. Here's what we know, and I want to be very precise because this case deserves precision, not speculation. 18-year-old Nolan Wells, he went missing on July 4th during a boat trip with his friends to Horn Island off of the Mississippi coast. His body was found 2 days later by a park ranger. The family, with funding from Colin Kaepernick, commissioned an independent autopsy performed by Dr. Roger Mitchell, a board-certified forensic pathologist and president of the National Medical Association. That independent autopsy, which was announced today by attorney Ben Crump, it found the cause and manner of death is undetermined, pending further investigation. We know that investigators found an area of red discolorization on the back of Wells' head that the report could not explain, and noted that parts of Wells' throat had already been removed during the state's own autopsy, which, to be fair, doctors say is common forensic practice, not evidence of a cover-up. A separate forensic pathologist not involved in the case said the findings are not consistent with foul play. Wells' mother, Christine Wells Wansley, said it best: the only question we have is what happened to our son. Vincent, when a case like this hits national attention this fast, what does it say about how our community processes grief in public before we even have answers?
Very good question. I want to think about that for a second, but what came to my mind when I saw the news, I was thinking to myself, what if Kaepernick did not pay for that independent investigation? It's unfortunate that our system is set up in a way where we have to have rich people pay for these types of things to even get this information. We would not know this if he did not pay for it. So I think there's something there that has to be fixed. I don't know what it is, but something has to be fixed. But in terms of processing the grief, I mean, I remember shortly after the case broke, there was a number of his friends were with the parents to be able just to be with them. But the people who were not there were the ones who were with her son the day he died. And that right there just keeps telling me they know something and they're not being compelled to say it and they're not coming forward with it because they're being protected by their parents. And this whole situation is just so unfortunate. I feel for that family, and I feel for any parent who has to wonder if their child going out with their friends is going to end up in their demise.
Al Reynolds, what was your reaction to this news this morning, this news conference with Ben Crump and the family? When they say that this independent autopsy, that the results in terms of finding a cause and manner of his death was undetermined, what was your initial reaction?
So I want to be very clear about my stance on this, and that is we don't want to put a whole lot of just singular attention on the autopsy. Okay, so you can say to me that the independent autopsy may be inconclusive, but the questions surrounding Nolan Wells' death are not. So I want everybody to let that sink in. The independent autopsy may be inconclusive, but the questions surrounding Nolan's death are not. Okay? We know he went to Horn Island with friends on July 4th. They returned and he did not. His body was found 2 days later, everybody. So the second autopsy may not have found no fractures or deep tissue injuries, but it did identify some unexplained discoloration at the back of his head. And that is, for me, all I needed to hear. Because let me tell you something. Decomposition in the absence of organs and neck structures following the first autopsy, like you said, may be normal, but it can only limit what the second autopsy can actually determine. And everybody needs to understand that. This is not a moment for internet detectives, as far as I'm concerned, to invent a conclusion. But for me, there are other sides of the story that you need to explain and make clear. All right? How did the phone get missing or left? How did he get left and why was he left? The authorities must release, and there must be pure transparency on this without thought, state findings. The authorities must preserve every piece of evidence besides the body. And they have to explain every discrepancy. I know I have 11 nephews and one niece. Taking their phone from them is like dissecting them. Okay? Let's be very clear. In any environment, black, white, or polka dotted, and we can't ignore the obvious. Now, this is the best part about the conference, the press conference, that I noticed. Nolan's family is not asking for a conspiracy theory to be proven. They're only asking for clarity. And when an 18-year-old leaves with the group and never comes home, we don't know, cannot be where the investigation ends, and I will not let it end there. And everybody in our community with a voice in this space should not let it end there.
To your point, I want to add, and I reached out to a few experts right after the press conference this morning, and one of the things that I heard that we should be paying attention to is, how did he get in the water?
Right.
That's going to be an important question that the grand jury is going to have to wrestle with. It's going to be a very important question that law enforcement is going to have to wrestle with. How did his body get in the water? Did he fall? Was it a drowning? Were there any drugs involved? Was there any drinking involved? Did he fall off the boat perhaps? And was he not rescued? Did they just sort of leave? The central question that I've been hearing from experts that we need to pay close attention to is, how did he get in the water?
Now, listen, I'm no expert, but from what I hear, why are you examining his throat? Why are you picking apart his throat in the first autopsy or examining the structure of the esophagus? Why are you doing that? Autopsies don't just examine the throat. Why is that one so taken apart that you can't ship it up the road with the rest of the body? So for me, that's what I need. I need answers around why of the whole body are you, the most part that you've examined can't be shipped up the road with the rest of the body. Now, I'm not a physician. Maybe there's an explanation to this, but that's what I need answers to as well.
In our remaining minute on this story, Vincent, I want to ask you really more of a sort of ethical question. An ethical question. We live in a culture where folks take to social media and they post their hot takes and all of that. How do we as a community talk about cases like this responsibly, holding space for the grief, demanding accountability without turning the family's loss into pure content?
That's a hard one because this situation is becoming a little bit like Emmett Till in some respects. And, I think her mother's name was Mamie Till, if I'm correct.
That's right.
And she realized that. And the open casket moment at his funeral helped to change the civil rights movement. And I think this is a situation where, unfortunately, her ability or their ability to grieve in the way that they should be allowed to might no longer be there. And this is more of a moment for a community. We as Black people, many of us and many people who are not Black feel as if we are not being treated fairly in this country. Definitely now under this administration, but historically. And this is another example of how even when you do right, you work hard, you play by the rules, you're able to achieve something and have your kid be able to just have some joy with friends, you can't be sure that they'll come back safe and sound. And a lot of people resonate with that. I've seen a lot of people on social media who say they were the one Black person in the social group, or their kids are growing up in a community like that, and they're fearful. And so it's like a new Emmett Till moment in many ways. And I don't know that this family will be able to grieve in the way that they deserve to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're going to continue to keep our eye on this story, even as we pivot to another story that is dominating the news headlines, and for good reason. We're talking about the Taylor Farms connection to MAGA. That's right. It's almost darkly comedic if it weren't making thousands of people sick. Taylor Farms recalled iceberg lettuce grown in central Mexico amid this nationwide outbreak of the parasite Cyclospora. Over 10,000 reported cases across the country. And federal filings show that Taylor Farms, get this, they donated more than $2 million to conservative political groups in 2025, including $1 million to the Trump-aligned super PAC MAGA Inc. Now, they have spent $810,000 on lobbying around food safety regulations since early 2025. And so here's where things get interesting. Taylor Farms executives, they met with the White House and the FDA officials on July 16th, just a day before the company issued its voluntary recall. And shortly after, the FDA walked back its own claim that Taylor Farms lettuce had tested positive for the parasite, calling it a false positive, a reversal. The FDA insists reflects science and not safety. It reflects science and safety rather, but not political influence. And so, Al, is there a version of America where corporate political spending and public health decisions are actually kept separate anymore, or is that a fantasy at this point?
Listen, I'm trying to be messy. You over here taking it to corporate, whatever. Let me tell you something. When I was growing up, we had a farm. And we had green beans. We raised tomatoes, cucumbers, green beans, corn. And my mother had the nerve to try to tell me to go down to that garden and pick these vegetables. Now, I didn't, I was too fly for that, did not want to do it. Now, I can imagine, though, and I'm, just thinking logically, if you are going to make it hard for my people in America, talk about Mexicans, not create that border, create so much havoc, deport us home, break up our families, but we're farming your lettuce. 1 + 1 will always be 2 for me, Dr. Nii-Quartelai. I don't know, but I might have slipped a little something in the lettuce too to get even. Now,
oh my goodness!
I didn't go to the schools that y'all went to. But when I tell you, when my mother used to send me to that garden, I used to do some dirty things to that vegetable.
Al, this has turned into the deleted scene from The Help. Vincent, as someone who spent their career in impact-driven business, what's your read on the optics here, regardless of what's ultimately proven?
I'm still taking it back, but that was Al, brother Al. That's a good one. I think that it is the Taylor Farms. They're doing what foreign governments have done, what a lot of companies are doing, and they're realizing that this president is corrupt, and this president will do whatever they can to get a coin. And it's unfortunate that the Republicans in Congress aren't seeing that a lot of the people who watch Fox News aren't receptive to hearing that information, and we allow it to happen. That's not what the U.S. should stand for. And I hope that people are waking up from that spell this November and come out and vote to be able to change Congress so we can hold him accountable and be able to get back to some sense and sensibility. But I agree with you, Al. Maybe that could be something that's going on.
Right, I will add this really quickly, Dr. Nii-Quartelai.
Hold on. Save that for when we come back, when we come forward, because we're going to keep the same energy.
Yes.
But we've got to also add AI to the mix, because AI is going absolutely rogue on its own creators, tech workers turning against the very industry that made them rich, and a story about Paris. We're connecting Paris to Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to explain all of it when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and in case you didn't know, that gentleman right there in that little red sweater vest, something right there, that one right there.
Used to be a farmer.
Yeah.
Not only did he used to be a farmer, that is the Al Reynolds. He has moved on up. He's political pop culture contributor to this show. He's also a Bowie State University professor and executive in residence. And this gent right here, for folks who are streaming us live, that is Vincent Jones, the CEO of Beyond Impact, a leader on the front lines in philanthropy and beyond. So look, let's talk about AI, because AI is becoming, a big part of our economy every single day. OpenAI, they said an autonomous agent powered by its advanced AI models went rogue during a security test and triggered a hack that compromised the infrastructure of AI startup Hugging Face. The agent was supposed to stay in a highly isolated environment, but exploited a previously unknown security flaw, a 0-day vulnerability to break out and get online, then use stolen credentials to access restricted information inside Hugging Face's production system. An AI safety expert at Oxford said that the model wasn't malicious. It was just doing what it was optimized to do, which is exactly the problem. Texas Congressman Greg Caesar, he called the incident alarming, saying that AI is developing extremely fast with no real regulations to keep us safe, and called for mandatory independent safety testing and mandatory disclosure of security incidents. Vincent, you work in impact and innovation. When even the company that built the thing can't control it, what should regular working people be doing to protect themselves right now?
Run and recover. No, I think that it's an interesting concept that I'm fascinated by technology, and I've been fascinated by AI, and I'm fascinated by this concept called the singularity. And for those who are listening and learning with us, the singularity is that moment when AI and technology gets so advanced that we as humans aren't able to comprehend or predict what happens next. There are some people who believe that we're getting so close to the singularity moment. Elon Musk says it's going to happen this year. Others say between 2029 and 2045. And so what that really means is we're building this technology to the point where it'll be like in the Terminator, maybe not necessarily negative, but they will have a life of their own, and we can't control it. All we are able to do is give it the ability to start thinking on its own and building itself. And so we're seeing a little bit of that now. And all of us should be worried, especially, going back to the last story about the Taylor Farms. AI has so much more money, and it's not just one company, but a whole industry that is putting money in local races, county races, state races, and federal races, and in the pocketbooks of Donald Trump to not get regulated. And that is going to help them in the short term, but hurt us all in the long term. And we all need to wake up and listen to it before we become like in the Matrix and become farmed by little machines in the Matrix.
I mean, I would add that also one big difference is, the farm industry, they have some level of regulation. They have been regulated for some time. AI does not have anything close to the regulation that farmers have. And so that makes us all the more vulnerable to this industry that each and every day is becoming a larger and larger share of our economy. Al, pop culture has been warning us about this exact scenario for decades. I mean, Vincent just alluded to The Matrix. Why does it feel like nobody in power watched The Matrix? Why does it feel like nobody in power has actually been listening?
Let me translate what these two gentlemen are talking about to the regular listeners like myself. Okay, they gave the computer an exam, and the computer broke into the teacher's office and stole the answer key. We already know what color that AI was. Now, that does not mean the machine became conscious. It does not mean the machine became evil or started plotting, like he said, world domination. It means, though, Dr. Nii-Quartelai, that the system became so focused on completing its assigned goal that it crossed boundaries humans assume would contain it. Now, that to me is the warning. Intelligence without judgment is not wisdom. It's capability without conscience, right? So when technology companies tell you, don't worry, we've tested, the public must say, who is the test, or who is testing the test? In my mind, to me, the robot cheated. It's funny until the robot has access to your hospitals, until the robot has access to your bank account, or in the United States, until it has access to the power grid, which could really mess some stuff up.
That's right. That's right, Al. I mean, this story actually connects to our next story quite well. Silicon Valley and the Bay Area, the very epicenter of the AI boom, are becoming a hub for backlash as tech workers and residents are protesting that the technology threatens their jobs, and it raises broader concerns about humanity's future, to your earlier point. In fact, one protester, a former copywriter, laid off after his company adopted AI tools, he joined a demonstration outside the AI company's headquarters, saying that he wasn't explicitly told AI replaced him, but that was clearly his impression. Vincent, for our listeners in industries that feel automation breathing down their necks, I'm talking about warehouse workers, customer service, entry level white collar jobs, what's the actual practical read here?
We've seen a little bit of this in the 60s, 70s, and 80s when we saw more industrialization at the factory levels. And a lot of those factory jobs that really kind of powered the middle class went away. I remember my stepdad was an engineer, mechanical engineer, and then the industry got taken over by CAD, computer aided drafting, I think it was, but he wasn't trained in that. And then so you saw all these folks who went to school, were earning a living for their families, lost their job because of that. And then you saw computers take over a lot, and the industry consolidated and didn't need as many people doing the engineering work. And they lost their jobs. And at that age, it was difficult for them to be able to transition and find something else. So we know what is likely to happen if we don't take action. And this is where I think as workers, people need to come together and be able to see beyond their individual self-interest in the short term and think about the collective interest in the long term, and try to be able to think about how can we have an economy in this country that works for all of us. And it can't just be about what the owners of these AI companies want to do. It has to be what is benefiting everyone. And right now, I don't feel that we have the sense of collective sensibility to be able to get to that point.
I mean, speaking of collective sensibility, Al, you cover culture and politics, and I've got to ask you, is this the beginning of an inflection point in the labor movement, or is this just a moment that fades once the news cycle moves on?
Now, let me tell you, the irony is impossible to miss for me. Okay, because look at what we're talking about. Some of the workers who helped build the artificial intelligence revolution are now protesting it is threatening their own jobs and possibly humanity. Let that sit for a second. Welcome to Silicon Valley and all of the HR complaints, right? They're all in HR now. But like you said, beneath the irony is a dead serious labor issue. Companies are telling employees, use AI to become more productive, be more productive, be more productive, while workers quietly wonder whether they're training the very tool that's put in place to replace them. That right there to me is scary. You created it and then you train it so that they can replace you because you cost too much. Now, we've seen job displacement through every major industrial transformation. Come on, Dr. Nii-Quartelai. You ain't that young. You've seen a few now, right? The difference to this one, though, it's moving at software speed, not factory speed. All right? And the answer cannot simply be learn to code, because AI is learning to code too. Workers do need and should be allowed transparency. They should be allowed retraining. They should be allowed severance protection and a share of the productivity gains, because that's what it's all about. It's about the bottom line of the dollar. Now, for me, technology should eliminate, and I'm here for it, dangerous and repetitive work in underperformers. But it should not eliminate human dignity while a handful of companies collect all the money. Then I'm going to say it again. Should not.
I mean, that is really one of the big challenges of our time, one of the biggest challenges of our time. I want to move to this next story that is it's Epstein related. Don't fall for the okie doke. We still have not seen nearly enough accountability, really any accountability related to the Epstein so-called investigation. A sobering update out of France where Daniel Said, a 69-year-old French modeling scout with documented ties to Jeffrey Epstein, he was found dead at his home outside Paris. Said's name appeared nearly 2,000 times in the declassified Epstein files, and he was one of several Frenchmen accused of helping Epstein traffic and abuse women, allegations that he had denied. An autopsy is underway, and his attorney says she believes he died of a heart attack, though that has not been officially confirmed. This marks the second man connected to Epstein to die suddenly in France. Modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel was found dead in his prison cell in 2022 while awaiting trial. Vincent, brief thoughts on this, given how sensitive and unresolved it is. What does it mean for the women that are still seeking accountability that another key figure in his network is gone before facing trial?
It's interesting. You think back to the story of Nolan Wells and his Epstein situation. We don't know anything about either situation, and there are important, powerful people involved in both. So it tells me something, that people in power do not want information to get out. And we're seeing that very clearly in Epstein files. Now, I wish we can get that AI agent that went rogue on that startup to go rogue on an Epstein case and be able to let us know what happened and who's involved and get it out there. Because we were getting so close a few months ago and be able to get more of the facts out there, try to bust the case wide open. But then, Trump and his ability to do distraction and the national psyche not being able to hold our attention too long, the moment passed. And it's interesting that this is there. Like I say, one last thing, it's kind of silly, but I don't know if y'all are into the Real Housewives as much as I am. That's my guilty pleasure. And the Real Housewives of New York put out their trailer yesterday, and one of their OG characters coming back, Carol Razawell, who was married to someone in the Kennedy family, she's in the Epstein files a number of times. And so the Epstein case is going to be a storyline on the Real Housewives of New York. So what I wonder, that will either make it to the point where people start to understand what's happening with the Epstein case and demand more, or it'll be trivialized down to a storyline in a reality show, and folks might think it's not really serious. But that's what I have to say about it.
When we come forward, we're going to get Al Reynolds' thoughts on this. Plus, Democrats are fighting over who gets to go first in 2028, and it's a fight with real racial and political stakes. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. Quickly, Al, I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that Jeffrey Epstein story.
Well, all I wanted to say was that at the end of the day, he was under investigation for, I don't know if we can say this on air, for rape and also for human trafficking. So he probably possibly could have had a heart attack, and it was probably not foul play because it was closing in on him. But this is what I do want to say: his death does create urgency because evidence, testimony, and accountability now is harder to obtain, especially when it comes to those key characters who played a pivotal role, which is what he was paid to do allegedly. So for me, we need to make this about following the evidence, preserve as much of the records as we can, and please, at all costs, center the victims.
That's right. That's right. Center the victims. Well, in our remaining moments, I want to talk about power. We've been talking about it all hour, but I want to talk about it a little bit differently and who gets to shape it. At least a half dozen states have applied to be in the Democratic Party's early nominating window for 2028. And the real fight is between South Carolina and Nevada for the coveted first slot. 5 Southern state Democratic chairs, they wrote to the DNC arguing that South Carolina should remain first, calling it not simply a geographic starting point, but a moral and political compass for the Democratic Party and for the nation. Remember why South Carolina got the top spot in the first place. In 2024, Democrats gave it that position instead of Iowa or New Hampshire, specifically as a nod to the party's loyal base of, that's right, you guessed it, Black voters. That's not a small thing. That's an acknowledgement, finally, that the constituency that shows up the hardest for this party deserves to be heard first, not last. Vincent, does this calendar fight actually matter does it matter to regular voters, or is this inside baseball that only political junkies care about?
I think it's not registering with regular voters, but it should matter to regular voters because the early states in the nomination process is who the campaigns really cater to, the issues that they prioritize, the people that they hire, and where they spend time and money. And if they like the base of the Democratic Party are still Black voters. I remember when Clinton was in office and it was impeached and all that stuff he was going through, it was Black voters who voted in higher numbers to help him get reelected. And in general, when Black voters vote in higher numbers, Democrats win. So we should be making sure that whoever's going to be up for the nomination can definitely resonate with Black voters, make sure that we're able to get our community out to vote in high numbers.
Al, in about a minute, can you tell us the real politics here? Who benefits if South Carolina stays first, and who benefits if Nevada leapfrogs it?
Listen, let me tell you, the choice of the state is very important because it can give the candidate not only momentum and money, but it can give it national media attention. Or if it's done in the wrong state, it can definitely give it political obituary as far as I'm concerned. For me, Nevada has a strong case. It's Western, it's diverse, it's union heavy, it's increasingly Latino, and it's competitive. However, the Black vote is the Black base of the party. You can't expect us to always show up and then ignore us when it comes to giving the state its due, right? It's time to give South Carolina its due. Like you said, South Carolina's Black electorate famously revived Joe Biden's campaign, presidential campaign. You can't expect us to save democracy and not bring it to the state. Bring it to South Carolina. They not only own it and deserve it, but they are the future in order to take over what is presently the worst political environment we've experienced in this century.
And that family is our 2 hours together. Vincent Jones and Al Reynolds, thank you both for staying with me the whole way through, for your wisdom, for helping us make sense of the news that had a little bit of everything: history, grief, greed, and a whole lot of we're still fighting. To everybody riding in their car on your drive home right now, or to the folks that are streaming us, we thank you. Remember Calvin Duncan, Nolan Wells, as well as Mike McIntyre's book, all of it. We've curated this show for you. Our thanks to the entire village that helps us produce the show each and every day. Our executive producer, Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer, Brother Andy, our show producers, Art Sears and Faraji Muhammad, and each and every one of you. Remember, don't panic. Don't you do it. Organize.
That's right.
Do what you can from where you are with what you have, but by all means, do something. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai. You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.